If you're not buying Najee Harris in Dynasty Leagues, does that mean you should be buying Jaylen Warren instead? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can check her out on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. You can also read her at Pro Football Focus and Behind the Steel Curtain. On today's show, we're going to be taking a look at three different backfields and deciding who you should be buying from these backfields, because I was doing some dynasty drafts over the weekend, and there was a couple players that I just realized I was out on. And if it means if I'm out on a starting running back, I probably should be in on the backup, or maybe the backup to the backup. So we're going to get into a couple different situations today, a little bit of this or that. And let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kate, because I'm buying Jaylen Warren this offseason because I don't believe in Najee Harris. But I think you might have a different take here.
I have a very different take. And for those of you watching along with us on YouTube, please just politely disregard the terrible towel waving in the back here. This is a totally unbiased Steelers fan here coming in who very much appreciates the efficiency and the level of efficiency that Jaylen Warren brings to the table. But I think there are some very simple reasons that dynasty managers should not necessarily buy into Jaylen Warren, even if you're not a believer in Najee Harris. For me, hands down, Najee Harris, I'm taking him all day over Jaylen Warren. He's actually being drafted behind Jaylen Warren in dynasty startup drafts, ADP based on the latest edition coming out of dynastyleaguefootball.com. RB29 compared to Jaylen Warren at RB27, which I think is a bit of a stretch and maybe a bit overreactionary based on, the fact that the Steelers did not pick up that fifth-year option. Because let's not forget, Jaylen Warren is an undrafted free agent. He is just about 5 months younger than Najee Harris, despite being headed into his third season compared to Najee's fourth. I don't think there's any level of safety in terms of Jaylen Warren's workload. Not a ton of I think guarantees. And if I'm going to be out on the starting running back in a respective offense, Marcus, I'm going to want, I need a bigger differentiator here, right? Like, I'm going to need him to be less expensive than the starting running back. That's what I think is so asinine about this entire situation is Jaylen Warren is the more expensive running back. So I don't see the upside here, given that I don't think there's any sort of level of certainty with Jaylen Warren. I get it. He is an efficient running back who, I think he is one of the best change of pace backs in the league, but I don't know that I would consider him a candidate for an every down role that's going to boast consistency.
I just think Jaylen Warren's the better player. And
that's
think
fine, but he's never had more than 15 carries in a game. Never.
I agree. However, this isn't all that uncommon for a change of pace running back to start their career this way, where they're the clear, 1B to a 1A. But by year 3, year 4, that's when they start to get more work. I think Tony Pollard is a good example of that. Austin Eckler was a good example of that early in his career with the Chargers. I just look at Jaylen Warren, and here's some advanced stats courtesy of PFF from last year. 98th percentile of missed tackles forced per attempt. 95th percentile in yards after contact per attempt. 96th percentile gap grade. 86th percentile missed tackles forced per reception, 91st percentile yards per route run, 95th percentile breakaway rate, third best in the NFL last year. When I watch these two players on the field, it's just, to me, again, just to me, I think it's so clear that Jaylen Warren is the better player. And I want the ascending running back, where I think Najee Harris, I wonder, as we get into his age 26 and age 27 season, with all the workload that's been on his body, what it's going to look like. And my final point here, Kate, is Arthur Smith is in town, and they are clearly going to a more zone-heavy offense. You look at who they drafted between Troy Fautanu, Broderick Jones last year, Zach Frazier this year. They're trying to get more athletic on the offensive line. And I think that type of running and that style of run game fits Jaylen Warren better than it fits Najee Harris. So I'm perfectly fine paying up for Jaylen Warren ahead of Najee Harris, because I just think he's the better player, the better fit.
I maybe you're trying to get a 1-year loaner, but again, Najee Harris is still in town. I look at Jaylen Warren and I look at last season. Again, you mentioned all of the advanced metrics. He was the more efficient running back. There was absolutely no question. But they're very two different style of running backs. I don't think you look at Najee Harris as one of these guys who is going to be the most efficient. You're looking at him as more of a bruiser. But even in the second half of last season, last 7 games of the year in the regular season, how many games, did he actually take over? None. Jaylen Warren averaged just under 10 rushing attempts per game. Saw his efficiency drop off in the second half of the season, averaged 4.2 yards per carry in the second half, where you actually look at Najee and he heats up all year long, dating back to the 2021 season. In the months of November through January, he leads all running backs in terms of rushing yards. He ranks 5th in terms of rushing touchdowns, 2nd among all running backs in those month spans dating back to 2021 in terms of total scrimmage yards. Najee Harris heats up, whereas Jaylen Warren cools off. I can't envision paying up for an undrafted free agent who, again, efficient, yes. Has he proven to be a full down, every down workhorse running back? No. And I think you look at Arthur Smith's offense, and I don't think anybody's expecting him to give either one of these guys the monster workload. So yeah, I'm going to take the first round running back who, first round draft capital is not a given. You look at a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he hasn't been as productive as Najee Harris. Najee Harris, despite a lot of inefficiencies, I think he's cutting some weight this summer, which I think would be a huge plus to his game. You saw Le'Veon Bell come in. He was playing a bit heavier, lost some weight, and then all of a sudden he looked like the running back everybody expected him to be. I think Najee Harris took a huge leap forward in terms of his vision if you're watching the games. Just two very different runners. Najee Harris going to be more of the physical, slam you down, stiff arm you into the ground, and Jaylen Warren, the more elusive of the two backs. But I think Pittsburgh wants to have a backfield that they're complementing both of those skill sets. And I don't think, like, even if you're projecting these guys 50-50 in terms of workload, I guess I'll just draft the second guy off the board, which is the first round prospect out of Alabama, who's going to get endless opportunities here in the National Football League.
All right, let's go to a different backfield. Let's go to the Seattle Seahawks, because this is another very fascinating one with 2 early second round picks. Let's get to that one next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and in the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. We've got an excellent conference final set up in both the East and the West, with the Celtics and the Pacers, and then, of course, the Mavs and the T-Wolves. It's going to be absolutely incredible. I cannot wait. I also can't wait to bet on golf. We've got some really good golf tournaments coming up in the next couple months. We've got the NFL not too far away. So go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Are you having to turn down the volume because of all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Kay, let's talk about the backfield in Seattle, because this one has actually been pretty easy for me when it comes to my drafting in my dynasty leagues. Are you drafting Kenneth Walker at RB11 or Zach Charbonnet at RB31?
Let's be clear. I mean, if we're looking at just the 2023 season, you're not going to walk away and think Zach Charbonnet was the better running back. And maybe that would have you enticed for Kenneth Walker's possibility. But I do think the gap here between Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet is far too vast, considering the facts that they have similar draft capital. Zach Charbonnet is younger and has 3 years left on his rookie deal compared to Kenneth Walker, who will be a free agent sooner. And then you look at the fact that, like, Zach Charbonnet, I think his rookie season is pretty hard to evaluate, generally speaking, because he dealt with several health issues throughout the season that I don't think we actually really got to see what Zach Charbonnet can do. He was one of my favorite prospects coming out in that class. And I got to admit, I was unfortunately disappointed by the performance. But then you put it into the context, like, had a shoulder injury, ended up having a hamstring injury, a knee injury. Like, he was not healthy. So it makes the evaluation in terms of, like, the efficiency metrics and the potential usage of these two guys a lot harder to evaluate. And then you have the fact, Marcus, that this is a new regime coming in, one that did not draft either of these running backs. So when you're looking at the fact that, like, both of these are kind of starting off with a totally clean slate with a new coaching staff, we don't really know who is going to be the preferred back. And, you know, play styles are different. So, like, they're not a one-for-one comparison. It's really challenging, but that gap is going to make me lean toward Zach Charbonnet, despite how much I like Kenneth Walker, the player.
Completely understand. You're just taking the cheaper player here and hoping for the best. But for me, I think Kenneth Walker is just so much better of a player. I thought he was a significantly better as a prospect. He has home run speed, where Zach Charbonnet is more of a 4.55 type of running back. I know Kenneth Walker wasn't super healthy last year. He was dealing with that was it the sports hernia injury. But still, you look at the numbers: 91st percentile missed tackles forced per attempt, 91st percentile receiving grade, 98th percentile missed tackles forced per reception. I want to build my backfield in my dynasty leagues with guys that have home run ability, that are special athletes. And to me, that's Kenneth Walker. I think you can find the grinders, the guys that can play between the tackles just more easy. These type of players are pretty rare, and they can help you actually win your dynasty league. So am I okay paying up for Kenneth Walker outside of the top 10? Absolutely. I just don't know what Zach Charbonnet's role is going to be. And even if he becomes the 65-35 lead in this backfield, I don't know how valuable that's going to be. I'd rather take Kenneth Walker here at cost.
I think that's really interesting. I guess I don't remember your pre-draft evaluation on Zach Charbonnet, but I mean, coming out of UCLA, I very much viewed him as a true 3-down capable workhorse running back in the NFL. He's got the build. Yes, he does not have the home run speed, but I mean, if you give him a 65% split, yeah, like obviously Kenneth Walker, I think, might always have that edge in terms of efficiency. But I also think that Zach Charbonnet, a very capable workhorse role. And again, I'm not saying that I'm really evaluating Zach Charbonnet and his rookie season, because I think as much as, you mentioned the Kenneth Walker issue with health, Zach Charbonnet had a myriad of injuries that I think just makes the evaluation here a little bit more clouded. But like, paying up for Kenneth Walker at RB11 just feels so rich to me, considering that this is a team that, after already investing that second round draft capital in Kenneth Walker, they felt the need to go back to the well. And I'm not saying that I don't evaluate Kenneth Walker as one of the better pure runners in terms of like breakaway speed and total upside, but I still go back and I wonder, like, what did Seattle feel like they were missing? And again, obviously different coaching staffs, but that just gives me one more point of hesitancy that it's hard to buy in at that price, because Marcus, that is a lofty ceiling for a guy who could reasonably split a back. Like let's say Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren split a backfield 50-50, right? You can kind of, that's more palatable because you're paying RB3 prices for them. You're paying top 12 draft capital for Kenneth Walker. So if he comes in and even splits the backfield 50-50, I'm feeling a little bit gypped there. Like, I can get Jonathan Brooks behind him, Josh Jacobs behind him, James Cook, DeAndre Swift, who I think all of those guys are going to have 60+% of their respective backfield carries this year. And we've said contract matters before, right? And generally speaking, you want the guy with more time left on his rookie deal. I feel like all of that points to Zach Charbonnet as the better value. Like, if I can break Kenneth Walker into Zach Charbonnet plus.
So I don't disagree with you. If this backfield is 50-50,
you're going to be gypped. You're going to be
absolutely
very angry that you paid RB11 price for that.
100%. Don't disagree at all.
And isn't that within the realm of possibility?
Oh, I suppose it's possible. I just don't know how likely that is, because in my mind, I view Walker as a significantly better player and a better fit for this new offense. I just think he's going to be the guy that's getting 65, 70, 75% of the work. And if that's the case, I think the talent's going to shine through, because he's a 4-3 running back that has good size, can run between the tackles. I just want to me, there's such a difference in talent level that I'm willing to pay up a top 12, top 10 prices for Kenneth Walker, even if there is a little bit of uncertainty with what's going to be behind him. Is this going to be a running back by committee situation? We'll see. I'm just going to bet on the talent overcoming here. So again, Kenneth Walker at RB11. It's not my favorite smash, but I will absolutely take that rather than gambling on Zach Charbonnet at RB31, where I don't know if he's going to play if Kenneth Walker's healthy.
Okay. All right. We're 2 for 2 on disagreements.
That's fine. That's good.
We got going into segment 3. Maybe we'll be on the same team for once. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's talk about Denver's backfield, because this is one of the more challenging backfields in the NFL. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets. We've got the NFL schedule out now. You can go look at tickets for every single game. I can't wait to go to some of these Cowboy games. I'm looking at that Week 1 game against Cleveland in Cleveland. Should be a lot of fun. Maybe go to Pittsburgh for that Sunday night game. It's going to be spectacular. Listen, with Gametime, you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy events, theater events near you, and save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. You can save, get this, even more when you choose a section and let Gametime pick out your exact seats. So many awesome things that Gametime does for you. So let them take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We are doing a version of this or that for the running back position. And let's talk about the Denver Broncos, because Javonte Williams is the clear-cut RB1 in this backfield right now, but they did draft Audric Estime. They signed Samaje Perine last year. Are you buying Javonte Williams at RB21, or are you passing and drafting Audric Estime at RB57?
I've been on the Audric Estime train all offseason long. And Marcus, that might not surprise you then that I'm going to go with Audric Estime at RB57. Now, I'm not saying that I don't like Javonte Williams, because I was very in on Javonte Williams coming into last season. And unfortunately, he was coming off a pretty catastrophic knee injury that I think all of us had questions about whether or not he was even going to be ready to play the season, let alone is he going to play it efficiently. But Marcus, I got to say, first impressions are probably just about everything with Sean Payton in year one, regardless of whether or not he was coming off of that knee injury. Javonte Williams did not have a stellar season. And again, I understand it is with the caveat that, there were, I think, lingering health issues coming off of that injury, but it doesn't make his efficiency any different, right? I look at Audric Estime, and I've said it from the jump. I said he's going to fall in the NFL draft because he ran a 4.71 40-yard dash. I think his play speed is much faster than that. If you're actually he's not like a burner. He's not a Kenneth Walker, but like he's not as slow as you would guess looking at a 4.71. He had no problem with breakaway runs coming out of Notre Dame. Again, one of these guys that, like, he has the build. He's 20 years old. He turns 21 just days ahead of season kickoff. He's young, and by all accounts, it sounds like he's already impressing there, between their rookie mini camps. I do think Audric Estime is going to have a pathway to winning this job. And you look at Javonte Williams heading into the final year of his contract. I'll take the much younger running back who I'm going to be like, I evaluated from a talent perspective as my RB3 in this class. The draft capital it leaves a lot to be desired, but Marcus, if you're in on Jaylen Warren as an undrafted free agent, I'm going to go ahead and say I can lean into Audric Estime with 5th round draft capital and roll the dice. I just don't think Javonte Williams showed Sean Payton anything last year that really is going to entice him all that much.
Obviously, I was a big fan of Audric Estime going into the pre-draft process. But him falling to the 5th round does scare me, because now you're a point in you got drafted so low that the Broncos could realistically cut him in camp if he does not look good, or cut him before the season. Now, I don't anticipate that being the case, but it could happen, right? But I'm also just so out on Javonte Williams at RB21. Like, I just can't do it. I had a Dynasty league the other day where he was by far the top running back available when I was on the clock, and I passed. And I think that's when you really find out how you feel about these players, is when you're on the clock and you're making decisions. And I just had zero interest at all in drafting Javonte Williams, even way below what his current ADP suggests. So I like Javonte a lot coming out of college, but now, you're going into year 4, the final year of his rookie deal. It hasn't been great. I mean, there's been moments where he's looked good. I wonder how much Samaje Perine is going to play. I wonder what Audric Estime is going to do if he gets on the field. Audric Estime costs you nothing, so that's why I would take him. I'm completely out on Javonte Williams right now.
Javonte Williams, 35th percentile or lower in the following categories last year: rushing grade, missed forced tackles per attempt, yards after contact per attempt, gap rushing grade, zone rushing grade, receiving grade, missed forced tackles per reception, yards before contact, drop rate. All of that per PFF, 35th percentile or below for running backs last year. Again, I understand he was coming off a catastrophic knee injury, but how much will we see him progress? Because he didn't make a ton of progression here, even in the second half of last season. That was kind of the thing that made me the most nervous, was like, we didn't really get a whole ton of improvements in the second half of the season.
Here's the other thing, Kate. Even if he hits, and let's say he performs better than what his current ADP suggests, is he really going to be somebody that helps you win your dynasty leagues? Because I just don't think this Denver offense is going to be very good this year with a rookie quarterback, basically a new starting offensive line. They've got Marvin Mims is going to be their number 2 receiver. No Jerry Jeudy. Like, I just have some real concerns that this is going to be a middling offense at best. And let's say Javonte Williams stays healthy and he gets the lion's share of the workload. You're probably looking at like an 1,100-yard running back that just doesn't give you the week-to-week ceiling that you really need to win in Dynasty. Now, maybe he can be that solid RB2 that gives you 75 total yards and can score a touchdown every other game or so. But I'm kind of hoping for more upside if I'm drafting a running back in that range. So for me, Javonte is an easy pass, and Audric Estime, in fact, Samaje Perine as well, are just easy smashes at the end of your startup drafts, just on the off chance that they do get to start.
And you look at, Marcus, what Javonte Williams has done this far. Again, we've talked about how contract situation does matter, especially for the running back position in this day and age where, we saw a more robust free agent market this past season.
Mm-hmm.
I look at Javonte Williams and I'm thinking, all right, what does he earn for his next deal? Because he is heading into a contract year. Is there a realm of possibility where, like, Javonte Williams, he gets backup money? And
oh yeah, 100%.
Just kind of, because I don't think there's anybody that could successfully argue that, like, no, Javonte Williams has earned big time production. No, like, he's coming off a season where he averaged 3.5 yards per carry, 2.7 yards after contact per attempt. Like, on 223 rushing attempts, posted a sub 800-yard rushing season. Like, I have big concerns, not even just about this year to come, but it's like looking at the potential market for Javonte Williams. I'm not sure it's going to be there. I hope I'm wrong, because I've been a huge Javonte Williams fan coming out of UNC. And, like, the rookie season was extremely promising. So do I hope I'm eating crow at the end of this year? Absolutely. I just think the chances of that happening feel relatively slim at this point.
Yeah. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we're going to be doing the wide receiver version of this or that, including, would you rather have Jaden Reed or Christian Watson? We'll discuss that on tomorrow's show, so make sure you tune in for that. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.